Hello, everyone, and welcome to FBOMB Global International Zoom, hosted by myself, Francine Witte, and Paul Beckman. Tonight, we have a wonderful group of readers and a wonderful group of people in the Zoom room. And I am going to start with a piece just to kind of like to warm up the space here. That I wrote in a Kathy Fish workshop, and Kathy Fish is here, and she gives these wonderful workshops. And so she gave us an exercise to expand something that we had already written, and this first section was a prose poem, and then I expanded it. And then she said, please send it somewhere great. So I sent it to Moon City Review. And Mike was nice enough to publish it, Mike Czyzniejewski. So there you go. So I'm going to read this, and it's called The Day is a Diamond. Light passing through to the infinite. My phone rings. Tomorrow calling. Tells me I am in a boat in a river and don't bother looking for land. Soon enough, tomorrow says, this will all make sense. This is no stranger than anything else tomorrow has promised. I see an island full of caves to disappear in and whoosh willow to lie under. I see a piece of sun in the sky. The hang of light in the air above the island doesn't make anything look faceted, carroted. I remind myself how a diamond is made, carbon to pressure to glitter. I remind myself that I should wait. The day is a ruby, color of a broken heart, color of bloodshot eye, no sleep because. I was a Valentine once. I waited for the phone to ring, to beep, to buzz, whatever it does, but it didn't. I waited some more, and the waiting became an island where I sat under a blush of tree and hint of moon. I remind myself of the red in my blood, color of a ruby stone, how it gives me life, gives me tomorrow, how sometimes tomorrow is a red lip pout, all memory and promise, and none of it true. I remind myself that I shouldn't wait. The day is a sapphire, blue cool of another chance. Every morning, every tomorrow is okay. Let's try again. It is plump berry in my mother's china. How skin fragile this tiny bowl is. I could break it like a bone. I pour my coffee into a teacup, though my mother always said it was wrong. How wrong is it to tell a teacup it's wrong, to tell it that it's only made for tea? I remind myself that I am a blue, unclouded sky, and I will fill myself today with birds and sweet lilac and the sounds from a distant carousel. I remind myself it's time to begin. The day is an emerald, green meadows everywhere. I remember play and parks and embroidery cards in Cheryl's backyard. Her father by the barbecue, waving away the smoke that rose up around him like a cobra. The day is new and smells of mint and all the things tomorrow promised us yesterday. I think of my friends from when I was small and sprout, how we had a million tomorrows ahead of us. We didn't think about it when Cheryl's father died sudden and lung heavy, or when Cheryl and I went our separate ways, how life turns into branches, and everyone you ever meet goes off on a different one. I remind myself this is the way life is. I remind myself to take another breath. Thank you. Now, we are going to start with our readers. And our first reader is Michael Czyzniejewski. Michael Czyzniejewski, because I said that right, is the author of 4 collections of stories, most recently The American in the Maze from Braddock Avenue Books, 2023. He serves as editor-in-chief of Moon City Press and Moon City Review, as well as interviews editor of Smoke Long Quarterly. He has received a fellowship from the National Endowment of the Arts and 2 Pushcart Prizes. Mike Czyzniejewski.
Hello, thank you so much, Francine. What a great story to follow up. I love that story. Um, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you. I see probably 6 or 7 of my students have come in too, so I'm really happy about that. If you're wondering who all those white names on black backgrounds are on the bottom there, they're from my classes, so that's really awesome. I'm going to read you a brand new story. Nobody's seen this. It's the newest thing I've ever written, so we'll see how this goes. Um, and this is called Now. Kyla texts, now. I throw on my running gear and tell my wife, Patty, I'm going for a jog. Kyla lives 3 blocks away. We'll have an hour. This happens 2 or 3 days a week. It's a good thing, this thing. I enter Kyla's through the gate in the alley. Her yard is overrun by trees, weeds, vines. The back door is open. I call from Kyla from her kitchen. She yells for me from the front room. I undress on the way. Kyla is waiting nude on the coffee table. Every time it's something different with her. I wonder if the table will hold. We are in the throes when I hear what sounds like a small train moving through Kyla's house. I look to the hallway as the sound gets louder. An old woman in a nightgown with a walker trudges past the doorway. I jump off of Kyla and point in that direction. There's an old woman in your house. I look for my clothes. They are scattered about where the old woman has gone. Yep, Kyla says, unmoving. Moments pass. The sound starts up again, wheels grinding against hardwood, unoiled metal squeaking. The woman crosses the threshold again, going the opposite direction. I hear a door shut. That's mom-in-law, Kyla says. She lives here now. She's mostly deaf and maybe blind. It shouldn't affect things here with us at all. I stare at Kyla. Don't leave me hanging, she says, reaching up, beckoning. Time's a wasting. 2 days later, I'm back at Kyla's. Kyla calls from the bathroom. She's nude in the shower. I stay clothed. The bathroom sits between the kitchen and the back bedroom, the bedroom where her mother in law resides. You can hear her coming a mile away, Kyla says. You too, I counter. Kyla laughs. That's the spirit. Kyla turns on the shower. I like this. It's cover. The shower is noisy. It explains nudity. The door locks. I start to think this could work. I undress, join Kyla in the tub. As Kyla washes me, I hear the doorknob twist. Knocking follows. The mother-in-law yells, asks if anyone's in the bathroom. More doorknob, more knocking. Stay here, Kyla says, like I wouldn't. I watch from the gap in the curtain. Kyla dries her face, wraps herself in the towel. She opens the door. I expect a quick dispatch. Instead, the small train rolls across the tile floor toward me. Kyla has let her mother-in-law into the bathroom. Take your time, Irene, Kyla yells. She shuts the door. I squeeze the curtains tight, freeze. I work to not picture what's happening 5 feet from me. She takes an eternity. Kyla re-enters after Irene lumbers out. The curtains part. Kyla's smiling like a goofy idiot. I want you to know I had no choice. It's our only bathroom. But I enjoyed it anyway. Leaving in protest is the only honorable option for me, but Kyla rejoins me in the shower, is immediately wet and all about me more than I've ever experienced. Who would I be punishing if I left, I wonder, and concede? 2 days later, another now. For 3 blocks, I plan to end things with Kyla and practice my speech. I picture Kyla in the back bedroom next to her mother-in-law. Kyla wants me right there, swearing up and down that it's going to be all right, that Irene won't notice. When I enter the house, Kyla is sitting at her table, dressed. You're breaking it off, I say. She's beating me to it. Irene's dead, she says. I am relieved. I feel terrible I'm relieved that I've sighed audibly in relief. But I'm relieved. I sit next to Kyla, put my hand on hers. Tell me how it happened. How's Les taking it? I'm so sorry for your loss. When are the services? Kyla looks up. Les doesn't know. I just found her. She's in her room, frozen, staring up at the door. I squeeze Kyla's fingers. Why am I here? Kyla rests her head on my shoulder. I maintain my hold on her hand. Kyla kisses my cheek. I kiss her forehead. She moves to my neck. She begins unbuttoning. Seriously, I ask? Don't ruin this, she says. Kyla's kiss on my mouth stops what I have to say. I kiss back once. I get out. We have to call someone. I called you, she says. I see the table has already been cleared. It takes Patty a week to notice I've stopped jogging. You've been smelling better, she says. This is not the worst thing she said to me. Kyla texts several times. Nows, question marks, an apology, an invite. The latter comes the day of Irene's funeral. I get a dog. I name it Les. I walk him, graduate to jogging, this time for real. It's horrible and I'm bad at it. So's Les. One run, cutting down Kyla's alley, another jogger approaches. I think we're going to pass, share the jogger's nod, but he doglegs through Kyla's back gate. I think about how much Kyla would like it if I also entered the back gate, used her open back door. She'd be in a room, not a bedroom, but a room with the new fake jogger. She'd be surprised to see me, but only momentarily. She'd invite me in. She'd probably adore Les. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike Czyzniejewski. And Mike was nice enough to bring some of his students tonight, so we appreciate that. Thank you very much. And it was a great reading, and I love that another now. that was a great line there. Thank you again, Mike Czyzniejewski. Next, we're going to hear from Lucinda Kempe. Lucinda Kempe's work has been published or is forthcoming in New Flash Fiction Review, Flash Boulevard, Centaur, Bending Genres, The Disappointed Housewife, Unbroken Journal, New South Journal, New World Writing, the Southampton Review, and the Somerset Review. An excerpt from her memoir was shortlisted for the Fish Memoir Prize in April 2021. She lives on Long Island, where she exercises, not exercises, with words. Lucinda Kempe.
That's too long. I need to cut that down to the last sentence. I'm going to read two pieces. One's very short. A lady, not a girl. The hostess had hair like Marilyn Monroe, something her mother had said the first time they came to the restaurant. She smiled. She was happy. Her braces were gone. Tonight she felt elegant, older than her 18 years and ready for change. She'd drawn her long dark hair into an updo for the occasion. I don't have a reservation, she said, giving her full name. Such a pretty name, said the hostess. A young woman a bit older than herself. You must be Greek. Yes, I am. She was half Greek. It'll be a 10-minute wait. You can have a seat at the bar. The bartender placed a napkin on the counter. May I get you something to drink, miss? Her mother had suggested she try a glass of wine. Something sparkling, her mother had said. I'll have a Shirley Temple, a little ice, she said, ordering what her mother ordered to pretend she was still drinking. One Shirley Temple coming up. The mirror behind the bar reflected the diners at the tables. 6:30, the place was already jammed. The three-dimensional plaster walls were painted with blue-green dolphins and narwhals. In a few weeks, she'd be going upstate to school on a scholarship to study art and ceramics. Last spring, her mother had accompanied her to an internship interview, a job she hadn't gotten. Then afterwards at the restaurant, her mama made her feel foolish for ordering the pricey bottle of sparkling water. Your drink, miss, said the bartender. Let me know how it is. The grenadine matched the red cherry. It was a pretty drink, and she sipped. The hostess glided over. Her eyes followed the line of her legs. In her mind's eye, she drew one leg black and the other white. A table is opened up in the back, said the hostess. I prefer to stay away from the kitchen, she said, following her mother's advice. The hostess smiled approvingly. It'll be a bit longer then. A group of men entered the restaurant, interrupting her thoughts. The men were in their late 20s, well-dressed but casual. The men barreled to a table in the middle of the room. Waiters flitted around them, pulling out chairs. Regulars. All three were good looking and her stomach jumped. She'd had crushes, but never had a boyfriend. Men were irritating, like Baba and her brother, always mansplaining. Her mother said all men wanted was sex. Her mother's opinion about men and sex didn't interest her. She wasn't even sure how she felt about men. Tonight certainly wasn't about them. It was a night to celebrate. It was a night to celebrate an 18th birthday dinner alone in Manhattan. Go to a really nice place, dress up, and celebrate your success with your own money, her art teacher had suggested. Miss, your table is ready, said the hostess. She felt the men's eyes on her and the hostess as they made their way to a table near the French doors opening to the street. The menu was all in Italian. The waiter arrived with small plates of hors d'oeuvres and a glass of champagne. Pink champagne, courtesy of the gentleman, he said, gesturing to the men whose eyes had followed her. She tapped the menu. I can't read. I mean, she took a deep breath. Excuse me, she said, pointing to the glass. Doesn't it come usually in a different shape? A flute. The gentleman asked specifically for the coupe. He said the lady would require it. Thank you. I'll have the bolognese, she said. A lady, not a girl, she thought, memorizing the shape for later rendering. The shallow saucer-shaped glass made the alcohol shimmer. She finished her dinner and paid her bill with babysitting money. When she arose, she didn't acknowledge the men, whoever they were. She exited the French doors where the wind kissed her cheeks. She ran her tongue over her teeth, savoring the absence of metal. Inside the restaurant, the bubbles in her drink, like small pink cherries, tangoed to the surface and popped. And this is a very short piece. It's called Comic. The atelier was noisy. She wanted to say something, but she didn't like confrontations. Suddenly, a Donald Hall-aged man came in and positioned his crumpled khakis, dander, and wild beard, the look one journalist called a yeti, behind an easel. The sound, a startling rudder, stopped her mid-stroke, like a turkey gurgle or a bereft widow or a zealous saint relishing the lash upon their back. A howl with a trilling quality, a lamentation, a rebuke, sleight of hand via uvula, so different from a finger wagging, quiet down, you squirts. Delighted, she continued her comic. And this was inspired by, in a 2010 photograph of 82-year-old Donald Hall being awarded the Medal of Arts, Washington Post columnist Alexandra Petrie wrote asking her readers to caption the picture. Donald Hall is not, in fact, a yeti. In his book, Essays After 80, Hall rebuked the journalist using humor.
Thank you so much, Lucinda. That was great. And I love that, a Donald Hall-aged man. That's a great description. And I love the champagne popping to the top image at the last line of your first story. That was great stories. Thank you so much. And folks, don't forget to put your thoughts into the chat if you have some nice feedback for our readers. It's just really always nice to hear, and readers, don't forget to look. Thank you, Lucinda Kempe. I want to just give a little shout out to some of our notable. We have some really big flash stars in the audience, and I'm just kind of delighted about this. Calliope Paleo's Kathy Fish, Jeff Harvey, whose gooseberry pie is just delicious. Zvi Sessling, Jackie Doyle, Andrea Marcusa, who is helping me as a bouncer tonight. So if you get out of line, she's going to bounce you. And not in a fun way. And of course, Pam Painter. So welcome. And my Aunt Miriam is here. And of course, our co-host Paul Beckman is here. So we're in good company tonight for sure. Okay, next, we're going to hear from Sarah Freligh. Sarah Freligh is the author of 7 books, including Sad Math, winner of the 2014 Moon City Press Poetry Prize and the 2015 Whirling Prize from the University of Indianapolis, and A Brief History of Women from Harbor Editions. Among her awards are poetry fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Salton Stall Foundation. Sarah Freligh.
All right, now I'm unmuted. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Francine. I have students here too. Hi, students. So nice to see you. I don't usually get to see you since we do everything asynchronously, but I'm glad to see you tonight. Thank you for being here. I'm going to read some pieces from my a book that's going to be coming out in a month or so called Hereafter from Ad Hoc Fiction in England. Next year, speaking of Moon City Press, I have a full-length collection of long stories coming out from Moon City called Other Emergencies. That will be out in February 2025, you know, if the creek don't rise. So anyways, I'm going to read a few from Hereafter. What she remembers, Queen for a Day. The time she dragged home a TV she'd trash picked from the curb in the rich neighborhood she drove through on her way home from the bar. Nothing but guts and a scream, so it scared the shit out of Petey, who hid behind the sofa until she explained to him about picture tubes in Hollywood and satellites, until he came crawling out and planted himself in front of the thing. They sat there for the rest of the day eating sleeves of saltines with peanut butter, watching quiz shows where people won cars and diamond bracelets and trips to exotic islands, or soap operas where couples shouted at each other between advertisements for products that would make you skinny or keep you regular. Their favorite show was one where women told their sorrowful stories in quavering voices, each one sadder than the last. Chopped off breasts and babies who died in cribs, husbands who were let go at work and later hanged themselves. The winner got an armful of flowers, a Maytag washing machine, and what was the use? It wouldn't bring back the dead kid or unhang the husband. A washing machine couldn't hug you or love you back. The roses, though, they were really something. 2 days after your kid dies, you go to work. I took a pantom as a verse form, poetry verse form, and I like to take verse forms and inhabit them for prose. So this is, I took a pantom and turned it into prose. 2 days after your kid dies, you go to work. Because men need martinis, because they need them dry with a twist of lemon. Because they drink them extra dry, you slash lemons into thin strips that you rub on the rim of the glass, add a ghost of vermouth. Because your kid is a ghost, halfway to heaven or wherever in a gold spaceship of a casket, you were talked into buying by a guy snowing dandruff under the shoulders of the shiny suit. Because men need martinis and your regulars tip big. Because you need money to buy the casket you're paying for in installments, you cut oranges without complaining. Because lady drinks need plastic swords of oranges and cherries the color of fresh blood, and men need their martinis dry with a mist of vermouth, a twist of lemon. Because the knife is sharp, a silver glitter in the dark of the bar, you slash and slash. Because your kid is missed, because he's a handful of silver glitter in the dark, because you need and need. Of service. She knew she'd had one too many. She's had far too many since her kid died. So she wasn't surprised to see the cop car flash up behind her. Yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, sir, when he sentenced her to 24 hours of community service, which is how she finds herself in a church basement, sitting in a circle of women knitting hats for the homeless. The same terrible coffee as in grief group, though no one is crying or talking very much, aside from the leader, Celeste, who coaches her on the basic stitches. After a few rows, the alligators are thrashing around in her stomach, and the apple that's been rising up to choke her throat is gone. The coffee's cold, but there's this stitch and the next. And how is it she's never known that pearl is different from the gem that grows in an oyster's gut? She could do this forever, a scarf, maybe a sweater. And if she had enough yarn, she could knit a new self to crawl into, cozy up to, someplace to oyster in while the grief blew through her. Firsts. More and more there are firsts. The first time she puts her head underwater, the first time she swims a length of the pool without stopping, the first 500 yards, the first mile, this, and here she that when something or someone ends, everything does. The days and days of gray after Petey died, how she drove his clothes and the clock radio from the hospital to the Goodwill bin in the Tops parking lot, tossed everything in, the clothes fluttering and sinking, the clock radio shattering, a cheap thing picked up at Kmart on sale. No one wanted them anymore, the salesman said. They want digital and Wi-Fi and big sound. But Petey liked to sit and watch the swoop of the red second hand, swore that it stopped right before it hit 12 and jumped 3 seconds to catch up to itself. Goodbye, radio. Goodbye, Petey. She wonders what he'd say if he saw her soft self packed into spandex, capped and goggled in the swimming pool at the Y. In the water, they're all weightless. It's a good place to cry too. Just dip your face in and have at it. Though lately she hasn't had to. Yesterday she heard someone whistling in the shower, and it turned out to be her. Another first. Imagine that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Freligh. And I think I can safely say all these readings, I don't know how you spell that, but that's my reaction. I can't even, seriously. Beautiful, Sarah. And move now to Dan Crawley. Dan Crawley is the author of Straight Down the Road, Ad Hoc Fiction, 2019, The Wind It Swirls, Cowboy Jamboree. His writing appears in numerous literary journals, including Wigleaf, JM, WW, Best Small Fictions, Atticus Review, and Smoke Long Quarterly. Sorry about that. And also, Dan is one of the best promoters on X-Twitter. Anytime you have a story, there's Dan sharing it, saying something wonderful, and about everybody's stories. So he's really quite a good literary citizen. Anyway, Dan Crawley.
Thanks, Francine. Love you, dude. And thank you, Paul and Francine, for inviting me. I'm going to read 3 short pieces from my recent collection, Blur, which I'm really proud of. This one's called Tables. I stood next to a table in the middle of the large classroom. I stared at my phone, at the text I sent the night before. Unsurprisingly, there was no reply. I'd written that if I didn't hear from her ever again, it had to be true. I quickly text, I shouldn't let cheaters off the hook because that is what I did with the earlier text, full stop. I knew sending this text was such a pathetic, desperate thing. My stomach ached. Then I looked over the classroom at all the round tables. It was like a library setup, and I didn't like how my students had to crane their necks to see their peers at other tables. I moved the chairs out from the nearest table and pushed this piece of furniture against the far wall. As I pulled chairs out and pushed another table toward the wall, a few students trickled into the classroom. The curving edge of the table struck the wall too hard, denting the plaster. Done with tables, I said to these students. Can you help put the chairs in a circle? More students arrived, and I said again, done with tables. I said this to everyone who entered. I shoved more tables to the edge of the room. Students rearranged the scores of chairs. Soon everyone sat in a big circle, holding small stacks of papers in their laps, ready to discuss. I told everyone that this is much better. Some students nodded. A few gave me the thumbs up sign. The students smiled. They now saw each other. I glanced at my phone again. One student, usually shy and quiet, said, tables can go fuck themselves. This made her smile even wider. That's right, I said. I turned off my phone and placed it on the carpet. When I clapped my hands, I felt less nauseous. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, that's the story. This one Francine took in Flash Boulevard back in the day. It's called Frivolous. Since Elijah had been great about the recent move, his mom thought he deserved a reward. He wanted a puka shell necklace like everyone else wore in junior high. So they went to the mall. At the food court, they stopped by a young couple, all decked out in denim. A string of puka shells hung around the man's neck. Elijah's mom rapped a knuckle on the plastic tabletop. Do you hear that? The man chewed some fries and the woman drank her orange Julius through a straw. Mom, let's go, Elijah said. That's your salvation knocking. Are you opening the door? Are you letting in? We have a peephole, the woman said. It's only the mailman. It's a huckster, the man said, and we're not buying. Hilarious. Elijah's mom let out a laugh. Trying out for Johnny Carson's job, huh? Mom, please. Elijah pushed on his mom's elbow and thought about the grocery cart she had stolen earlier, how he'd steered it full of their belongings from the one-bedroom apartment to the studio in another building. His mother acted thrilled when they first saw their new home. They would share such a boss bedroom, and there was a tiny kitchen in their boss bedroom and a boss bed hidden in the wall. You better answer the door, his mom called over her shoulder. When she turned to Elijah, she grinned like she single-handedly saved the whole food court. She said, they're like I was before I opened the door, frivolous. Elijah still held on to his mom's elbow, though now she was leading him down the mall. In a department store, she went straight for the discount rack. Let's find some clothes for you to wear. Elijah let go of her elbow. I want puka shells. I'm not buying you that kind of necklace. I hate you. Good, sounds good, the mom said. That's what Jesus called you to do, remember? Hate the mom and follow only him. I changed my mind. I love you, Elijah said, exasperated. Only you. Speaking of wearing things, did you notice that she wore a gold band, but he didn't? She rifled through the hanging shirts. I worship only you, Elijah said. Yes, I know, sweetheart, you poor thing. Okay. And this last story, this was actually it's got to be 12 years now. In Dear Wigleaf, when I got a story in Wigleaf. And I kind of added a few lines. It's called Tiki. Last night you said you didn't remember what happened 20 years ago, but I know you still remember. You had found an old brick in the garage and spent hours carving it with a chisel, creating an amazing Tiki statue. And when you showed it to me, I grabbed it, ran into the house, and then appeared on the second-story balcony. I held the tiny statue over the railing. From below, you begged me not to do it, but I did. Your beautiful brick Tiki statue broke into 4 chunks on the patio. I really don't remember, you said. Not a big deal, you said. It is a big deal, I said. So I showed up at your place at 1 a.m. I brought a sledgehammer and went to town on your brick planter. I knew you wouldn't hear. You were pretty drunk last night. Luckily, out of the rubble, 4 bricks were salvageable. I also brought along a regular hammer and a chisel. I sat on your lawn with a tiny flashlight between my teeth and chiseled like mad. Unfortunately, none of the bricks looked like your Tiki statue. I was pretty drunk too, but more like statues of bug-eyed, lopsided-nosed old men. I placed them in a row on the lawn, all facing the street, earnestly watching the horizon. It was the least I could do. Thank you. Thanks again for letting me read.
Wonderful, Dan Crawley. And Dan mentioned very nicely Flash Boulevard, which is one of the 2 journals that I'm flash fiction editor for. And I hope you'll all send me stuff. Flash Boulevard is just, just Google Flash Boulevard and it'll take you there. And SoFlo Pojo is the other one, South Florida Poetry Journal. And I'd love to see your stuff, So, and thank you, Dan Crawley. Wonderful to see you again. So, next, we're going to hear from Kathryn Kulpa. Kathryn Kulpa is the author of Cooking Tips for the Demon Haunted, New Rivers Press, and a map of lost places forthcoming from Goldline Press. Her work has been chosen for Best Microfiction and the Wigleaf Long List and nominated for Best Small Fictions. Kathryn has stories in Flash Frontier, Ghost Parachute, Smoke Long Quarterly, and other journals. Find her at KathrynKulpa.com. Kathryn Kulpa.
Thank you. Thanks, Francine. Can everyone hear me? Okay, I'm going to start with a brand new story, never before heard or seen. And it's called What is Yours First is Yours Forever. When people ask what magic power you'd choose, you never want to fly or be invisible. You want what you've always wanted, the power to make all lost things come back to you. You'd walk into the room of lost things, open your eyes, and there they'd be. The pet turtle you let loose in green grass all those years ago. The story your best friend in high school tore up when she was mad at you. Your mother's Poochie dress, the one you loved as a child, its wild pattern like a monstera plant, moss green leaves, pale celery background. Mommy, wear your Dipsy Doodle dress. You were sure that dress had hung untouched in her closet for 35 years, zipped in its garment bag. But when you asked your stepfather not 2 days after the funeral, he shrugged and said he'd sent all that stuff to Goodwill. You picture your mother's eyebrow lifting, just the one. The vintage designer dresses she collected on wire hangers at some thrift store. But toward the end of her life, she only ever wore sweatsuits. All her bright plumage faded. Maybe that dress meant nothing to her, but a time she didn't want to remember. A shadowy time almost lost to you, except in gulps of vivid color. Your mother chopping limes on an enamel table by the swimming pool. A bright yellow big bird toy you dragged with you everywhere that left bits of yarny fuzz in your hair. The man in a blue velvet shirt who came over and played the piano but never talked to anyone. There were stairs down to the living room, a red carpet. Look, I'm on the red carpet, your mother would say. There was a hallway on the second floor, and if you looked down, all you saw was trees for miles, a dizzy-making canyon a person could disappear into, and people did. That was what you remembered most about that time. The sense of danger, of adult conversations that stopped when you walked into the room. The murders, people whispered, the trial, and her alone here with a kid. Their faces would turn to you, guilty smiles, a sudden interest in coffee cups. You breathed it all in, the way Victorian children were said to breathe in arsenic from poison green wallpaper. And then it wasn't there. The house wasn't there. The piano, the man in the blue velvet shirt. Your mother's green dress, zipped away in a black bag, gone forever. In that room of lost things, you'll find it. Your mother will be there, wearing the dress, head thrown back in a model pose, long legs in knee-high boots. And sitting in the corner by the piano, maybe a little shy, will be a man who looks just like his picture, the one picture of him your mother kept. A little slowly, a little haltingly, your mother will lead you to him. And then, for the first time, your father will take your hand. And the next one I'm going to read is also quite new and was written in a workshop with Sarah Freligh. It's called Nocturne. The mother did not set the owl free, but she would have. The mother pictures herself scaling the park gate after hours, black top and pants, black beanie, wire cutters in her back pocket. When the mother was a child, she rage patrolled her small street, yelling at every car that passed. Did you kill my cat? The cars never stopped. The people never answered. The mother walks. It's what she does now instead of sleeping. Her last pair of sneakers worn treadless, heels receding to shiny nubs. She walks early mornings, walks at twilight, the blue hour, when the light reflecting off windows becomes extraterrestrial. She looks for long purples, for the green flash. She's read about the green flash, but never seen it. She looks for the owl. She has seen the owl. They are a tribe, the owl watchers. They share sightings on parapets, on fire escapes, on scaffolding outside building sites. Once she saw him in flight, a long tail hanging from his mouth. Seeing the owl fly made the imaginary wire cutters in her pocket spin and snap, made her want to cut every cage in every zoo in the world. The mother doesn't join the gathering at the tree in the park, where children leave crayon drawings of owls, huge basketball eyes, triangle beaks. The mother has had enough of funerals. And I'd like to do one more very short piece to finish. And this is an erasure. I think some of you might remember, maybe a couple of months ago, we were all doing rejection erasures, but this one was inspired by a cooking pamphlet that my grandmother gave my mom. And I actually still have it. It's from some kind of Spry. It's a, I don't know, shortening company. So this is the Spry erasure. It's called 50 Shades of Spry. One of those rare women, a born cook, may not realize complicated old-fashioned methods speak for themselves. Start with the right tools for scraping out unfamiliar space. Do not alter, do not shake or tap on the table. Dip rubber, pack steel, run around to prevent lumping. Keep covered, do not warm to touch. Use a sharp knife, rub between the palms of the hands. Keep coloring delicate until wrinkles remove. A tart, firm shape is best. A masculine favorite, so pretty for a party. Counting strokes ensures the right amount of beating. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kathryn Kulpa. And I meant to mention Sarah's classes too. They're wonderful, aren't they? Sarah Freligh's workshops, amazing. And you can see the products in that wonderful story. So thank you so much, Kathryn. That was delightful, wonderful. So now we're going to go back to someone who was supposed to be third. I guess I got stuck in traffic. So he's here now. Damian Dressick is the author of the novel 40 Patchtown and the Flash collection Fables of the Deconstruction. His writing has appeared in many literary journals and anthologies, including W.W. Norton, New Micro, Electric Literature, Post Road, New Orleans Review, Cutbank, what can I say that tonight? Smoke Long Quarterlies. I love Smoke Long. Why can't I say it? And New World Writing. Dressick co-hosts Wanna Live, a largely visual reading series that brings some of the best Appalachian writers to the world. Damian also serves as editor-in-chief for the journal I think it's Appalachian Lit. So Damian can tell us. Damian Dressick.
Thank you, Francine. Yes, I was out trying to trade my car in, and I got stuck in so much of a deluge that I was thinking maybe I should trade it in on a motorboat as opposed to another automobile. At any rate, yeah, I think you can say it either way. So we're a welcoming bunch. So as some of you might know, I used to live in New Orleans. I had a really long misspent youth that lasted until I was 27. And this is a piece called, I've been reading a couple pieces from that were come out of the world of New Orleans, and one that was sort of immediately before it. This is called Freligh. Freligh had a beard like a beehive made of cancer, skin raw as abattoir beef, pacing behind the night bar. On the St. Anne block of Bourbon Street, he even poured beer like a fixture. How long does it take to surrender selfhood to the category of local color? 10 years? 20? 30 going once? Just call me Freak, he'd say. Can identity be seated so utterly as to become just another curiosity in the place you haunt, an upright piano played by Armstrong, an AA chip nailed to the wall? Is it comforting somehow to feel freed from the tyranny of agency by routine, by circumscription, to let your past cast a shadow that dwarfs your future? We all knew Freak had been in a band back in 67, 68. Not one we listened to, not one would even know if it came on the radio. For our part, we younger bartenders, with our flirting and our cups of Hennessy stashed in the well, looked to the old man as a clock. Steel wool ponytail, janky gait, stale blue eyes. Freak let us know what life looked like when it was over. And this is called, there's a party every year that's very LGBTQ party in New Orleans called Southern Decadence. And so it's called Decadence 94, quote parentheticals, Southern. Rounds in quick succession at Café Lafitte in Exile, bleed into slave quarters on Iberville, a sofa included in his rent, New Orleans lore, amyl nitrate, fan of porn mags spread across the cocktail table, honcho, blue boy. We're talking the same shit over and over. One of us is embarrassed. By the time it's light, we're pressed together in the cramped bed, exposed brick walls, framed Nagel print. His cock is thick, easy to get off. I'm verging on sober, uninterested. Birds make their noise outside the window. Truck drivers bang barrels onto Royal Street. I close my eyes. The sheets are clean. And I'm going to finish up with one more. This is called Young Americans, August 1979. Whirling across the spongy deck behind his parents' single wide, we slide from one rain-slicked 2x4 to the next. Tuxedo shirt unbuttoned to my navel. Prom gown ripped to accommodate his shoulders. We spin between the dripping rails. Twist, feather step, clothes change, freeze. Wrenching a hank of hair, I jerk him forward, force him down with the meat of my palm. On his knees, he scores the paleness of my stomach with lipstick traces toward the jockstrap swollen with knotted panties. I offer nothing but a performative sneer. My fingers push across his cheekbones, smearing the pancake makeup into eyeliner. I revel in the chiaroscuro, my dark nails against his blonde platinum wig in the streetlight haze. A mile down the tracks, our three-street town feels far as Mars. The saxophone flourishes, echoing into the jack pines. Hold me, like I'm holding him, like I have never been held before. This flashbulb moment is nothing less than transfiguration. We are being reimagined by these key changes, transformed by that snarky baritone. Its haunting melisma charges our molecules as they chasse in the drizzle. From here on, things will only get more haphazard, glossy. Our planes will never streak into Iowa cornfields. Even our riots will reincarnate as history lessons. Thank you. Thanks, Francine and Paul, for putting this together. And thank you so much for everybody who's come out to listen. It's so wonderful that people were able to do this. And Kathryn, I've never heard you read before, and you're really great. And I like your work. I've read it since, for 10 years in all sorts of magazines. It was really great.
Thank you. I remember your work from Cleaver.
Right there.
Yeah.
That was actually it. That was where that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Damian. That was, again, like I said earlier, that's my reaction to all the readings tonight. I can't even find words, that you can actually spell. My mind is just being blown again and again and again. So now we can continue with this mind-blowing. Next we have Patricia Quintana Bidar. She's a Western writer from the Port of Los Angeles area with family roots in Southern Arizona, Northern New Mexico, and the Great Salt Lake. She's an alum of the UC Davis Graduate Writing Program and holds a BA in filmmaking. Her work has been included in numerous journals and anthology, including Flash Fiction America, which is the New Norton, Best Small Fictions, Alternating Current, and Best Small Fictions, Telekinesis Press 2023. She lives with her family and unusual dog outside of Oakland, California. Patricia Bidar.
Thank you, Francine, and thank you, Paul, and just everyone. Damian, that was so great, and all the readings so far. Thrilled to be part of this. So I trust everyone can hear me okay. Right, Francine? Okay. The story, one story, it's from Northwest Review, where many, many years ago I served on the staff, and I lived in Oregon. It's called The Old Painter. And the first, it starts in dialogue, and it's a man, an older man, so you know. The world's on fire, and you're all talking about your inconsiderate roommates, banging like monkeys, and then coming out afterward for fruit. Behind him, the old painter has pinned a poster of his show at the Cincinnati Art Museum. Even on my computer monitor, I can see the corners of this poster are ragged, as if the old painter has moved the poster from apartment to apartment since the 1980s. The top right corner thumbtack drops and the poster curls. I registered for this virtual painting class on a whim. For the occasion, I have gathered paper, a mug of water, and a drugstore watercolor set. I wanted something to report of my weekend come Monday morning. This class was free to register. You give via Venmo at the end, and it's optional. Most participants are muted, but the old painter's assistants are live. That's how the teacher knows what they were talking about before he turned his camera on. I'm just saying, it's hilarious that before class started, everyone's talking about Pride Week, as if gay rights are even a thing, now that civilization is roaring to an end. His faded hoodie is tight across his belly, bunched at the armpits. How about the way it's 112 degrees in Portland today? How we're all gonna die, like really, really soon. The assistants, clearly stoned, laugh politely, and in one case, manically. Someone asks when we'll start painting. The painter flashes a hand. Wait, there are only 16 people total in the Zoom gallery. A couple of them shake their heads and their boxes disappear. The old painter seems not to notice this. I'm getting aggravated by you people laughing. You're interrupting my thoughts. The old painter has terrible teeth. Okay, sorry to be a downer. Let's start again, he says. I am overdressed. I wonder how quickly I can turn my video off, change clothes, and get back on camera without being singled out. Say, what's better than a retweet? The painter asks. Love? Psh, love fades. Love flees. But hear me out. You might come home from being told you have stage 4 cancer. You might come home with this terrible news and find that your Instagram post has been hearted 300 times. That's when you'll say, hooray, now I just know I'll be in remission soon. More gallery boxes wink out. The old painter reassures us that he is funny when he wants to be, but he opines that none of us burnouts really want that. I am not stoned. When he asks us all to take a moment and regard his face, I oblige. I am overwhelmed to behold in close up the face of someone I do not know, someone who, because he has finally located his monitor's camera, is talking directly to me. This is the face of someone who has lived, the old painter says softly. His eyes must have been pretty once. Register within me his long years of struggle and joy and pain. Will he ask us to paint him? And folks, since the pandemic, my erections have been amazing. Some of the participants' eyes dart in the way of people who are not sure they are hearing what they heard. Fuck yeah! One assistant laughs her crazy laugh again. I'm grateful for her, especially now that the old painter is telling us that his parents wanted him to be an orthodontist, yet never got him braces for his own teeth. This is why, if we were together in person, we would be wiping droplets of spittle off of our chests, as he needs to wipe his computer screen now, he says. The next question is one of those more of a comment ones. And from another of the assistants, a straight-haired woman in one of those band t-shirts from which the neckline has been scissored out. I'll show my tits if Venmo's reach 500 bucks. Silence. The gallery faces are unmoving. I mean, what the hell? My kids are asleep upstairs. The painter looks disappointed, but also expectant. I want to message this woman that she is as good as anyone here. Most of the gallery faces look amused, with a sprinkling of effort to appear nonchalant. But you can also tell they can't fucking wait. It is an excruciatingly awkward moment, and yet it is one of genuine human connection. Finally, the old painter finishes rubbing his face and mutters that being stylish is important and that his wool cabbie cap is something he does for all of us. Then he says he is tired and must bid us all adieu. The faces wink out. My finger hovers above the red leave button, but I don't leave. Now it is just me and the painter and the assistant who offered to show us her tits. I realize the old painter doesn't know how to click off. There would be plenty of time to paint after this, a lifetime of whatever length, but we won't be together like this ever again. The assistant raises her top over her face, and I press my open mouth to the screen. And under my lips bloom beautiful, tiny, rainbow-hued circles and circles and circles. Thank you.
That was awesome, Patricia. And I love inter-fucking-rupting. It's a classic.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Patricia Bidar. Next, we're going to hear from Elan Barnahama. He is the author of 2 novels, Escape Route and Finding Bluefield. His fiction and essays have appeared in numerous journals, most recently Paris Lit Up. A recent story was nominated for Best of the Net 2024. Elan was a flash fiction editor at Fourth Magazine, LA. He is a New Yorker by geography and a Mets fan by default. Elan Barnahama.
Thank you, and thanks to Francine and Paul for putting this together and for everybody being here. I'm going to read 2 short pieces. The first is called Red Box. I pulled into the parking lot of the 7-Eleven on Lincoln Boulevard. I'd been living in Venice Beach for about a month and had made a lot of progress on my new novel, but had not made any headway on new friends. When I first arrived, I tried coffee shops, but no one talked in Venice coffee shops. So then I started hanging around the boardwalk, where I eavesdropped on conversations just to hear people talk. I wore headphones so it looked like I was listening to music and not being creepy. If someone said something interesting, I pretended that I was part of the exchange. Earlier that night, I was on one of my favorite benches watching the sun disappear into the Pacific. My best listen was a woman who told her date that to be genuinely from Venice, you had to stay AWOL, always west of Lincoln. I'd been AWOL without knowing it. There were 3 homeless guys sitting on the pavement in front of the 7-Eleven as I parked. My plan was to get snacks and sit in my car and listen in as people entered and exited the store. I hit the jackpot with a spot in front of the Red Box. I liked listening to discussions about what movie to rent. As I shut the engine, this guy, a small guy in his 20s, tapped on my window. I hadn't noticed him coming over. He almost fell onto my window. He was clearly wasted. I got out slowly, backing him away with the car door. He asked me for a cigarette, and when I told him I didn't smoke, he got angry. Maybe he thought I was lying. I knew him, or kids like him. He looked like one of my students from when I taught community college, back before I decided to leave the classroom in New York City and head west. They never got older, but I did. I looked at the kid and I wondered if I wanted to be a teacher again, and I did not. He was twisted and irritated, and that made him dangerous. Besides, I had no advice for him. I locked the car and headed inside without saying anything. He started to follow me into the store. Inside, I grabbed some cashews and a black coffee, and when I went to pay, the kid was mouthing off to the young woman behind the counter. Funny how she looked to be about his age, and she didn't. I felt bad for her, but I didn't need to. She kicked him out of the store with ease and grace. And as I was paying, she told me that he was either looking to get the shit kicked out of him or maybe he just wanted to get arrested so he'd have a nice place to sleep for the night. I was too sad to stay and listen to the couple in front of the red box trying to pick out a romantic comedy. Who even had a DVD player anymore? I gave the cashews to the homeless guys, got in my car, and drove home. Thanks. And the next one is called Radio Days. I had wired my brown plastic radio so that whenever I turned on the bathroom light, I had music. I stood in front of the sink, staring into the mirror, desperately looking for something to shave. Crosby, Stills, and Nash was singing their new song about a ship made of wood. When the song ended, the DJ, Paul Jacob, described his walk to work through Central Park that evening. Paul often described a Manhattan scene at the beginning of his show, and I always looked forward to it. He spoke about summer in the city like he was sitting in a diner, talking to a waitress pouring him coffee. Some days, Paul chose to describe a softball game he passed in Central Park's great lawn. He loved baseball as much as music, and he would put together baseball teams made of musicians. Dylan had to pitch. He was crafty. You'd never know what he was going to throw. Paul Simon on second, Hendricks on short, he had great range. Jerry Garcia on first and probably batting cleanup. The possibilities were endless, the combinations intriguing. Why did it make sense that Frank Zappa would make a great pitcher, that Stevie Winwood belonged in center field? And then, without warning, I heard Paul Jacobs announce that he was doing his last show. Just like that. Not last for the week, not last for a vacation, just last. He gave no build-up, no promos, no farewell tour. No speech and no words of advice or parting wisdom. He was moving on, and he didn't say why or where he was going. Paul continued speaking in his calm voice, pulling me into the armchair beside him. I turned up the radio, and though I was only inches away from the tiny speaker, I strained to hear each word. Desperate, I tried to slow down sound. Tried to make my brain listen in slow motion, and record every moment. I wanted to break words into syllables and syllables into letters. And then I heard footsteps echo inside the radio. A chair scratched across the floor. I heard piano keys being struck. And Paul began to sing about birds and wires and drunks and choirs, about midnight and wanting to be free. When the song ended, he thanked everyone for listening, and that was that. I pulled the plug to disconnect the radio so that it no longer turned on with the light. Thank you.
Thank you, Elan Barnahama. That was just such great storytelling. Like I was sitting there like that. Very good, very nice. And you have a great voice, great reading voice. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Elan Barnahama. Next, we're going to hear from Andrea Marcusa, who is, as I mentioned before, my bouncer for the evening, and she's always does such a great job with that. I so appreciate it. Andrea Marcusa's writings have appeared in the Gettysburg Review, Citron Review, Milk Candy Review, Cleaver, New Flash Fiction Review, and others. She's received recognition in a range of competitions, including Smoke Long, Cleaver, and Southampton Review. She's on the faculty at the Writers Studio and also a member of the school's master class, where she studies with poet Philip Schultz. Andrea Marcusa.
Hi. Thank you, Francine, for doing this every month. She makes it sound like I work really hard. All I do is sort of sit here and wait for something to happen, but it gets me anxious, I have to say, because you're like, oh my God, what if something happened? Okay, so tonight I'm going to read just one story. It's called Her Fight, and I hope I haven't read it here before. I couldn't remember. Her Fight. After she got the news, Emily went home, sank into bed, and tried to figure out where all her fight had gone. Some of it went to the super Sal, of course, that corrupt, bribe-taking slimeball, the one with the ski house upstate. Emily remembers confronting him in her flooded apartment after her pipes had burst again and Sal lying about it all. She had threatened to destroy him, her exact words, "I'll bury you," and how, when she said it, every nerve inside her had felt like an electrified fence. She'd stayed that way for hours, sure she was in the right, even after her husband, Donald, had called her out of control. Not that Sal was such a bad super. He'd kept the building running all those years. Some of her fight went to the dinner time phone marketers, the waitresses, the sullen clerk at the dry cleaners, the cable company, and her deadbeat brother. For years it had gone to Sam's school. There was the winter she'd awoken night after night, consumed with how his fifth grade classroom had turned so sour. Her husband had pushed for this school, the jock school, even though she'd wanted the artsy one, because they had more smart kids there than the midget Neanderthals. She'd ended up teaching Sam ways to protect himself from the aggressive, body-checking 10-year-olds in the stairwell. And there were the karate classes she got to him on Saturdays, and all the silly plastic trophies they gave the kids just for showing up. There was the time she marched into the fifth grade teacher's office before school and demanded that the boys who kicked Sam off the lunch table be punished, that things be made right. Clueless Mr. Cole had pinched the insides of his blueberry muffin and with a look of total surprise. After school that same day, Sam had refused to talk to her. Only later did she learn that the same kids had tossed Sam's sneakers out the window because she'd snitched on them. Emily rolled over in bed and gazed out the window at her block. Her fight had gone into protesting the 12-story monstrosity on this corner, those pricey condos, the corner with Sam's favorite playground. She hadn't minded the tedious community board meetings, those strident-voiced young women rambling into the microphone, or the scoldings dotted with long, labor-breath pauses from the ancient neighborhood historians. There, amid all the outcry, Emily felt a part of something, a collective standing up for something, even though she'd only gone because Sam had wanted to be there. She'd used her Saturdays to collect signatures, make phone calls. Then Sam petered out for no good reason. 10 weekends gathering signatures, time off from work and school for meetings. The building went up anyway, a few stories shorter perhaps, but it still cast a huge shadow on the sidewalk. Sam's favorite playground was gone. There were the badge numbers and employee names that she'd written down on the backs of business cards and then called out in letters of complaint. The bank account she closed in a huff and then reopened down the street. And the slow burning that always accompanied these eruptions, that smoldering wedged deep inside her gut. There was the gigantic parking attendant who just last week threatened to put a boot on her car because she'd backtalked him after he'd asked to see the receipt to prove she'd been a patron at the lot store. She'd never parked where she wasn't supposed to, but she tossed the receipt when she left the store, not thinking. And that man refused to believe her. If he'd been a foot shorter, she would have written down his name and badge number 2. There were the arguments in the car, the three of them driving home late that evening, and she and Don bickering about the route. It didn't happen often, but that Sunday night they'd gone at each other. She'd taken a back road to avoid the freeway traffic, her idea. Donald thought it was a waste. He had a thing about being right, even when nobody else cared. He had been complaining that the back roads were a 45-minute detour, not worth the gasoline or engine wear and tear. She'd been trying not to rip into him, trying to ignore him while pressing her foot on the pedal, the speedometer inching up. She was about to say something. She glanced over at Donald sitting beside her, but before she could utter a word, the car hit black ice and began to skid. They slid sideways off the road into the night and slammed into an icy snowbank. A metallic tearing, a deafening thud, then quiet. Engine smoke swirled in the car headlights, and Emily rushed to unbuckle her seat. She called Sam and Donald. When neither answered, she fought her way out of the car, unbuckled and yanked Sam out of the back seat. He'd stood there frozen while she yelled and yelled at him to get away from the car. She climbed over to the passenger side, all the while threatening Sam with awful things if he didn't move. She reached Donald, undid his seatbelt, and pulled his armpits across both seats, over the controls, past the steering wheel, out the door, and onto the ground. She doesn't know how she did this because Donald is a large man. Then she called 911 and yelled at them too. After the emergency room, after the car was towed to a junk heap, after the insurance company provided a lender and pile of paperwork, and they were home safe, not a soul mentioned that night and how she yelled at everyone, fought with everyone. That afternoon, after Emily got the news, after she listened very carefully, trying to take it all in, learning about her options, she could see what lay ahead. She'd hailed a cab, and on her way home, she had considered all those years, all those things, all those people she'd fought. At home, she'd gone straight to bed. When Sam and his father arrived at the apartment, they had no idea she was there. But she could hear them in the kitchen, the TV blaring, them watching a baseball game, she listening to the clattering of dishes, maybe some glasses, the two of them hanging out together, laughing and talking, father and son. They both liked TV sports, had a thing for sitting around the kitchen table, eating a big bowl of popcorn, sharing that huge flat screen, watching somebody else battle for a win. Emily supposed that any of the fight that she still had left would have to go to her breast cancer.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. That is sobering. Yeah. Beautiful and very poignant. Thank you, Andrea. And I do want to say that I understand that that kind of tension when you're asked to watch every second. So I very much appreciate it. It's not like you have to do a lot, but you have to do a lot. So it's very much appreciated. I really do, and I know Paul does too. So we've reached our final reader now, Bill Merklee. And sorry, that was Andrea Marcusa. Sorry, thank you. Bill Merklee's work has appeared in numerous journals. Now that he's done laughing about the rapture, he's returned to completing a chapbook in a hybrid novella. Bill Merklee.
Thank you, Francine. I have a couple of really short things. The first one is a work in progress that got started in a Kathy Fish workshop a while ago. I just circled back to it now. This is where it is at the moment. It's called White Paper Gown. Outside, the day is an oven. That doesn't deter the handful of protesters across the street. They're quiet, but their signs scream alternatives. We've already considered them. But at 18, neither of us makes much money, and Allie's dad is perfectly capable of killing both of us. Inside, the room is a washed-out Polaroid, the air clean as crisp linen. My sweaty arms cool quickly, making the hairs feel brittle. I pay at the window, and Allie fills out forms on a clipboard. Every bill in my wallet feels like sandpaper. She's called in minutes later. I take Allie's hand, and she squeezes hard, like she wants me to stay with her. I watch the double doors swing closed. Everyone in the waiting room is sitting on the same edge. I feel their eyes on me. I'm the only male in there. I pretend to read a magazine. 3 cups of water fail to wash the metallic taste from my mouth. This could be a hospital, a courtroom, a church, places we go to reset, places where some make peace with their God. They bring Allie out in a wheelchair, assure me it's just protocol. The gown was white, she says. White paper. Allie needs time before going home to act like nothing happened. We drive to my house, saying nothing. My parents won't suspect anything. They think she's a quiet girl anyway. I turn on the TV and we sink into the sofa. Mom brings us lemonade. I take Allie's hand, hold it like a baby's, like she might break. She takes it back. Thanks. And this last one came out last month in, I'm never sure whether it's called HAD or HAD or Hobart After Dark, but that's what it came out in. And it's called The Wheels on the Bus. The handful of high school juniors talk like I'm not even there, like the bus drives itself. I put up with the rough language because, frankly, it's all material. The only time I interrupt is to get them to turn the music down or to ask them to put in their earbuds. Sometimes they surprise me with Pink Floyd or the Pixies, but mostly their music makes me want to put a gun in my mouth. Most of them slump in their seats, so I don't see them, I only hear them. I smelled one of them once, that familiar skunk funk he thought a cracked window would hide. He finds his own way to and from school now. A different teacher is today's fucking bitch. They argue and laugh about how one of them fucked up scrambled eggs in cooking class. Almost anything anyone says is turned into a sex joke. Then they start raving about Pokemon. Junior year is a fucking strange time. Lena is an arsenal of F-bombs, but they're cartoon explosions. Her voice is sweet and clear, all perfect diction and hard R's. She's a big girl, bear-like, her black wiry hair pulled back into a tight bun. Talk turns to who is and is not marriage material. Lena blurts out she will probably marry her cousin. This elicits knowing snickers from the others. I'm serious, she says. That's what we do. We're all inbred. What she says isn't shocking. It's the matter-of-fact way she says it. Everybody where I live is related to everybody else, she continues, like it's some revelation. I know that sounds fucked up, but I also know if you fuck with one of us, you fuck with all of us. The other kids know this is true. Everyone in that part of town has one of 4 old Dutch surnames. They are almost all freckled, dark-haired, light-skinned black. They supposedly have some Native American blood. You don't start trouble with any of them. When I drop off the next to last kid, Lena gets quiet, hibernates in a back seat for the 10-minute ride through the woods to the outskirts of town. The part that's been in documentaries. She's lucky to live on a hill, away from the slow death that bubbles up from the abandoned iron mines, poisoned by that auto company long ago. At her stop, Lena leaves without saying a word. I watch her trudge up the hill, past a tangle of forsythia and the yellow no outlet sign. Thanks.
Wow, that was awesome, Bill. And again, I congratulate you on being in HAD because they only take like 200 submissions, I believe, for each thing. And I mean,
Oh, it was nuts.
just to get into that, like, you know,
the window closed in less than a minute.
amazing. Amazing. But that's an amazing story. The slow death bubbling up to, oh, love it. Bill Merklee, wonderful stuff. So I want to just say what a wonderful reading this has been. You can see just the magic of the Flash community, which is so kind and generous to each other too. I mean, everybody's so supportive, and it's just wonderful. And everybody likes to nurture each other, and the quality of the writing is amazing. And I think we saw a good section of that tonight. I want to thank Michael Czyzniejewski, Lucinda Kempe, Damian Dressick, Sarah Freligh, Dan Crawley, Kathryn Kulpa, Patricia Bidar, Elan Barnahama, Andrea Marcusa, and Bill Merklee. Beautiful, beautiful readings, everybody. And I'm going to turn off the recording and we can hang out in the Zoom room if you still want to. I want to thank my co-host, Paul Beckman. And, you know, he's been just wonderful and I love him. And we'll be back next month, first Friday, with some more in the best of Flash. Meanwhile, drive safely. Good night. Okay.